Welcome to Moving Through and Beyond, a podcast dedicated to sharing inspired journeys of redefining life, vision, and purpose after immense hardship and grief. My goal with this podcast is to give you hope and to let my guest journeys inspire you to make the choice to keep looking up. I'm your host, Carey Conley. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Moving Through and Beyond. I'm your host, Carey Conley, and I am so excited about this interview today for so many reasons. One, we're in a brand new studio, which is amazing. And two, I get to interview the owner of Personalized Solutions, who runs the studio, runs my podcasts, and is a very, very special person to me. This is Leila.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah, we've been wanting to do this for a long time.
We have.
And usually she's so busy behind the scenes that I can't get her here.
Yes.
But I just want to tell you a little bit about her, you all. I met her, I don't know what it's been like now. This would have been 2018. Yeah. At a networking event here in Arizona. She shows up at an event that I had been going to for a long time, Women at Scottsdale, and already knew everybody in the room. I'm like, okay, who is she and how did she do that so fast? And so we had lunch, and I hired her actually to be like a personal assistant to me for a little while, manage me personally as well as professionally, because what had happened 6 months prior to me meeting Leila is that I had lost my son, my 25-year-old son, to suicide. And so I was just coming back up for air, so to speak. And she helped me do that. And then when my daughter and I launched our book in 2019, she was responsible for us going on a book tour and crushing that.
It was amazing.
Yeah, because of you.
Thank you.
Handled all the details, and now she helps people like me get our voices out through this podcasting studio. So I'm thrilled to bring her here because she's a very unique individual, young and mature, and just has crushed everything she's done in her life, which is impressive.
Thank you.
Because so many people your age are not, Leila, and I know you know that.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I do. I feel like, though, it is easy to get caught in the comparison trap because the people who are doing things are very visible and doing things.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that the younger generation right below me probably struggles even more with that comparison piece of, I always feel there's so much more to accomplish, and the to-do list never ends. I'm never at a point where I'm just like, all right, we're in a good spot. And it's not to say I'm not grateful for the growth in places that we are, but there's just always so much more to do. And because of that feeling, I think that's what's propelled me to continue growing and innovating and building and, growing my business for the last 13 years. Yeah.
I've seen you, what's the word I'm looking for, expand constantly, right? And one of the things I love about you, this is also why you and my daughter get along so well, is because you make very quick decisions. You don't let fear stop you.
Yeah.
You just think, you know what, we're going to go, like this podcasting, right? Mm-hmm. How you decided to do that is just made a decision. Said, hey, I think we need to go in this direction. And I think I know so many people, young adults and younger than you, because I talk to them a lot, is that they are so afraid to step in any direction because they feel like they're pigeonholed with where they are and they've got to stay there. Mm-hmm. Or they're just so afraid they're going to take a step and fail, right?
Well, here's the thing. When I started my business right out of college, the economy was in a weird place. I decided I hated what I thought I was going to do, which was going to get into lobbying and make a bunch of money and Capitol Hill and all that. And so I quickly was like, this is soul sucking and I don't like it. And I didn't necessarily know what the right move was, but I knew the things that I didn't want to do. And so if making the decision to start a business, which is what I eventually did, was a mistake, while going into a career path that I already knew I did not like, even though it's what I studied, felt like a mistake too. Yeah. So which mistake is the better one to make? Yeah. And it was like, let's just go all in. And the other part too that I want to tell young people is that there are people out there who are much stupider than you who are doing the thing. You know what I mean? It's not about a matter of book smarts. Of course, I do think I am a smart individual, but yeah, it's really just jumping in. And what's funny, you say that I make quick decisions as an outsider looking in. My goal for this year, I didn't make any other goals, I didn't write anything else down, was make decisions faster. Because the longer it takes you, say you've got 10 decisions you need to make, and if it takes a week to make each of those decisions, that's 10 weeks that are now gone, and you only have 52 in a year. So I've just wasted a lot of time. If I can make that in a day, then in 10 days, I've made the progress that it could have taken someone to make in 10 weeks.
Yeah, it's so good. And this is why I have people like you in my life. Because as you know, I can tend to chew on something too long, right? Mm-hmm. And then I think about all the factors into it. And what I have surrounding me are a lot of people like you that just say, just go, just go, just go. But you made a really important point that I wanted you to expand on a little bit more, is that I think so many young adults are going through a career path that were put on at a very early age.
Yeah.
My son being one of those people, I think he would have made a whole different choice. What we do is we mold you into going into the field that we think is best for you at the time you're going to be coming out of college. And so many times you come out, go into the career, and 6 months later, a year later, you're thinking, I don't like this.
At all, yeah.
But so many of them aren't choosing to do what you did, which was to make the choice of, I might as well go try something else if I'm going to be miserable. Let's try something different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. And in college, I had internships in finance, and I did that, and I made a lot of money, in my summers off. And they offered me a full-time position, and I was like, there's no way. I hated doing this. Mm-hmm. I also am not a numbers person. I'm a creative person.
Yeah.
But, I just had enough experiences early in life to know the things that I really just did not want to do.
Yeah.
And that helps. So I think a lot of kids now probably aren't putting as much time and energy into trying on the different shoes. Like, the biggest thing you can do if you've made the mistake of going to college and spending that amount of money is to not go and do a lot of serious internships, because that's how you really get to try different shoes on without it being a huge commitment.
Yeah.
And without feeling like you're stuck or you're trapped. Because guess what? Summer ends and you go back on campus and you continue, and maybe you change your major, maybe you do something different. But for me, I'll talk about college as well, because I know that's another big piece. And I'm not knocking people who go to college. I went. I had a great time. Have some amazing friends. But I graduated. And keep in mind, I went to school out of state. I had no idea what the finances of college were. My dad never talked to me about that. And he ended up going through a divorce while I was going through school. And so I'm an only child, and I grew up in a more affluent space. So I never thought I would have to worry about anything. If I wanted to go here, there, didn't matter. My dad always wanted me to go to an Ivy League school. And, I didn't have a concept of the money piece.
Right.
So goes through this divorce. A lot of financial things change. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of, I think, my freshman year, I'm getting an email that I've got like student loans and things. And, my dad was acting and getting it handled so that I wouldn't have to come and go back to school in Maryland and to go to a state school or anything like that. Fast forward, I graduated with my dad contributing a lot of money to my education, but I still graduated with $88,000 in student loans. And when you're accumulating them as a young person, you really have no grasp on what that weight will feel like when it's now time to start making those payments.
Yeah.
So every month, once that the loans came to maturity, I think my payment was like $980. And you just feel scared to death. You're like, how am I going to do this? How in the world am I going to be able to do this and also be able to pay rent and actually start my life now that I'm out of college and my parents aren't paying for everything?
And this is, I think, one of the biggest stressors of young adults right now is the money. Because a lot of them are coming out with way more than $88,000 in debt. Some of them $250,000. I don't even know how you start your life like that. And then how do you get yourself out of it, which you successfully did, get yourself out of all that debt by yourself.
I did. By age 26, I had paid off the $88,000 of student loans, and I can attribute that to starting my business. When you own a business and you write your own path, your earning potential is really unlimited if you're willing to put in the work.
Yeah.
And I've always been willing to put in the work. No matter what, I will do it. And so for me, I was going through intense money struggles. I remember one month I was like, I can't pay my student loan payments that I'm making plus my rent. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell my friends. I struggled pretty much all of my 20s. I paid them off by 26, but still the money struggles were always in my mind. So pretty much my whole 20s, I struggled with money. And I never told anybody. I didn't talk to my parents about it. I didn't talk to my friends about it. I was like the Lone Ranger, like, I will figure this out. And if you were to ask any of my best friends in DC, they would have been like, we had no idea. We had no idea, A, you paid off that much debt, and B, that you were like, holy shit, how am I going to pay my rent?
So why didn't you tell anybody about it, Leila? Because I want to know this, because I'm sure there are other people listening to this or keeping this under wraps too.
Honestly, it's one of those things, and even now in my 30s when I've gone through money things, because guess what? It's not something that just goes away.
Right.
You know, COVID hit and my business tanked, and then all of a sudden we're back to money issues.
Yeah.
Once again, though, I openly talked about that a little bit more because I felt like the government played a hand in like trying to destroy small businesses, and I was very angry about that. So I was more vocal in that situation. But even to this day, I don't talk about that kind of stuff because in my head, it's a personal thing, and there's no one out there who's just going to come and save you. And so you really need to dig deep within to figure out your solutions.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's bad to talk to people. It's just not the route that I took.
Yeah.
And I also didn't want to show signs of weakness. I didn't want everybody looking at me, pitying me, or if I went out to dinner with a friend, I didn't want them thinking, oh my God, can she afford this? I don't know. If I just told you, oh my gosh, I've got my student loans and my rent, I don't know if I can pay both, then now they're looking at me in a different light.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to paint that picture for myself. So it was kind of that fake it till you make it attitude.
Yeah.
And to me, there was no chance I wasn't making it. So why share that along the way?
Yeah. So how did you get yourself out of the debt?
Oh my goodness. It sucked. It was a lot. So my business, fortunately, has always been profitable with the exception of the 2020 era. And yeah, I saved, I wouldn't even say I saved. I pretty much lived on the smallest amount that I could while still having a little bit of a social life. I didn't really get to travel at all. And all my friends were going to cool places. In DC, everybody's cosmopolitan. I'm off to Dubai, I'm off to Barcelona, I'm off to here, I'm off to there. And I'm like, I'm going nowhere. But I'm working like 7 days a week. I did work 7 days a week for a very, very long time. And I just kept working to get new clients and to maximize the ones that I had. So every dollar I made was going straight into paying off these loans. So a lot of people are like, well, the loan company says that you owe $980 for the next 40 years or something wild. Just pay the minimum and you'll get there. But the problem is the interest.
Right.
And with these student loans, every single interest rate every year was different. It was not like a fixed this. One was 7%, one was 5%, one was 3.5%. I can't even remember it all. So to me, it was, we just need to get this gone as fast as we can, as fast as we can. I'd land a new client. They'd give me the deposit for their project, whatever it was we were doing. And I would literally just go and straight away put it into paying off the loans.
Yeah.
And it was just this like sole focus because in my 20s as well, I was in a serious relationship with a guy who was a doctor. And he came from a wealthy family, didn't have any student loans. And so in this relationship, I just didn't want to be the weaker link. And that was another motivation layered on top of, we got to get rid of these student loans.
Yeah.
And so I did. And I remember being really excited the day that I paid them off. But it was an excitement that was shared by me, myself, and I once again.
And your cat. Did you have a cat then?
Yeah, I had two. I've always had two. I was super proud of myself. But I didn't tell anyone. So it was a weird journey.
Yeah. Would you go back and tell people now, knowing how much of a burden it was on you to keep that secret because you felt weak?
No, I wouldn't.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like to share things. I'm not somebody who's, opposed to talking about stuff. But I think that there's, especially right now in this age of mental health that we're in, there's this situation that people don't want to talk about, which is reliving your trauma every time you're talking about it, every time you're talking to your therapist about it, every time you're talking to your friend about it. And in my 20s, I was in a really crappy relationship. And I remember that was just a huge topic of things that I would talk about with my friends, So it was like bad stuff with the boyfriend. And then now I'm continuing to keep reliving all of that chaos because I'm telling my friends like what the latest situation in that stupid relationship was. And so I think that if I had, shared about the money piece, that it kind of would have just added more stress. because at the end of the day, my friends aren't going to help me with this. You know, my parents, they did as much as they could in my youth, but it wasn't something that I needed their handout for.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm stronger because I was able to figure it out.
Yeah. Well, I commend you for doing that, and also deciding to launch your own business in your 20s, because we are also in the age of you said the age of mental health. We're also in the age where never before have there been more opportunities for young adults to start their own business. And I think a lot of them want to, but they're scared to. So tell us about that. Tell me how you started your own business.
Yeah, so after graduating college, I really didn't know what to do, because the industries that I wanted to go into the State Department, they were on hiring freeze. And so long story short, I got into a good, healthy relationship. This one came before the chaotic one that I just mentioned. And he lived about 30 minutes outside of DC. So, you know, it moved pretty quickly, and I decided to go move in with him. He was, I don't know, 6 or 8 years older than me, had his life together, owned a house. And so it just made sense. I was like, okay, cool. This is good. And I ended up working at Nordstrom's as a stylist there I said, I'm going to do this for 6 months because I need to make some money. I've got to pay these student loans. I'm responsible for paying for the groceries and for the electricity at this, you know, boyfriend's home as my contributing piece.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I like fashion. Let's see how this goes. But I was like, I don't want to get sucked into the retail world, because there's a lot of people who do, and then that's your whole life, and then you never had a weekend to yourself.
Yeah.
So that wasn't the life path, but I needed some money. So I did that, and at the 5.5 month mark, I had worked 80 hours. My paycheck was $300, and the week before, Nordstrom was a weird catty place, but somebody had slashed my tires in the parking lot.
Oh my gosh.
2 of my tires. So it was not like some weird accident. And I just had enough. I was like, it's time to go.
Yeah.
So while I'd been working there, this really nice woman had come in and was shopping, and she, you know, we just like stayed connected and started texting. And I sent her an email one day and I said, hey, do you know anyone looking for a personal assistant or anything of that nature? I've got to get out of this. And she said, actually, me and my husband could definitely use one. We live right in the heart of downtown DC, though. Why don't you come by tomorrow? Come by, meet her and her husband. And they're like, okay, great, you're hired. But he's like, but don't quit Nordstrom. Like, you can just do this part-time and whatever. So immediately that day I went and I quit Nordstrom. I was like, I am out of here. What I will be making being a personal assistant part-time is more than I'll be making at Nordstrom tenfold. So I took the jump of faith and I quit, and I was like, okay, great. Now I'm just this wealthy couple's personal assistant. Like, let's see how that goes. So my first day on the job, and this is how I started my business, which is why this story is important. My first day, I walk in and door is unlocked. They lived in this gorgeous building in penthouse. And so go inside, and I see a note on her desk, and it has her credit card. And she says, hi, can you reorganize my closet for me? We're in the Bahamas. I'll be back in a week. And I was like, wait, so no one's here? I just walked into someone's home and like, you give me a credit card. Like, there's no contracts in place. Like, it's, you know, it's crazy the amount of trust. And so I was like, sure. So I go to the Container Store, come back, and I've got all these bags. I'm in their elevator going to the top floor. And this woman gets in the elevator with me, and she goes, oh my gosh, are you moving in? And I said, no, I'm a professional organizer, and I'm reorganizing someone's closet today. And she goes, oh my God, I need you. Do you have a business card? And I said, no, I don't. They're in my car, and obviously my hands are full, but how about I get you one and I'll bring it back on Monday, because this was on a Friday afternoon. And she's like, okay, yeah, great. I'm penthouse 4. And I was like, excellent. I will be back Monday and we can chat then. So Friday, finish up this closet situation, drive back to Annapolis where I'm living with my boyfriend. And I was like, I need a business name. I need business cards. I need to go file some paperwork. And I'm like running through it. And he's like, oh my God, like what is going on? And so I came up with the name Personalized Solutions because I knew that I didn't want to be a personal assistant forever. And I didn't want to be an organizer forever, but I didn't really know what direction. I was like, I need something kind of vague that says a whole lot of nothing while saying something. And so that was the business name. Went downtown Baltimore, filed the paperwork, paid the rush fee, got the LLC, and then I printed business cards, I think from like FedEx, and walked in on Monday with my name on a business card. And then I had a little notebook and I was assessing her situation, and I decided, well, I was charging X amount over with client number 1 at Penthouse 1. I'm going to double that. And let's just see how it goes. And she didn't even blink. She was like, yeah, of course. So then fast forward, she becomes an amazing client, still a great friend to this day. And then the third phone call I get is from the owner of the Redskins football team, who also needs a lot of organizational help. And then word began to spread, and now I've got an assistant who actually used to be someone who shopped with me at Nordstrom. I posted on Facebook, and she was like, oh my gosh, I would love a job. And so her and I became teammates, and literally we're working 7 days a week. We would get to clients' homes at 5:30, 6 in the morning to beat the traffic, and we were working our butts off. And then over the years, the business evolved to then working with politicians, doing high-level fundraising events, lots of cool different things.
There are so many lessons in this story, Leila. One, that you have never been afraid to work, and I think that's a really big point we need to make, is that you cannot be afraid to work hard. And I think so many times right now we are painting the picture that it's going to be easy.
Yeah.
That you're going to get this college degree, you're going to get this great job, and, work the 9-to-5 gig, and that's just how it's going to be. And when we ask people to go above and beyond, it's like, what? Right? Mm-hmm. So your work ethic is amazing. The fact that you were thinking on your feet that day, like, I'm just going to do this and see where it goes. And the fact that you started at Nordstrom, gave it 6 months and said, I'm going to do this for 6 months just because I need money.
Yep.
Was the one place you needed to be that took you to the next step, to the next step, to the next step. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of times people don't think about that it may be a temporary thing right now that might suck, but there's a reason you were there. And I'm a big believer that everything looking back on my life led me to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing.
I think anybody who takes the time to think about it will be able to see that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And it goes back to what you're always saying, which is having a vision. And it's funny because fast forward a million years, I'm at a party with a bunch of my high school friends, a holiday party, and I run into my very, very first boyfriend, and he goes, you always said you were going to start a business. And I was like, did I really? You kind of forget what you said when you were 16.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I mean, watching, it all unfold on LinkedIn, it's not surprising at all. And I'm like, wow, that's so cool that was my vision when I was young.
Right.
That I wasn't hyper-focused on it. I wasn't thinking about it every single day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just was looking at what do I need to do to get to that next step. And so with Nordstrom, it was what do I need to do to be able to pay these student loans and not feel like I'm just in this endless rat race of applying for jobs that I don't even want.
Right.
And so that led one step to the next step to the next step.
Yeah. So now you're 33?
35.
35?
But I'll take 33.
Well, I'd put you at 25, but,
Thanks.
Looking back on things, and just imagine that you're talking to somebody who's just about to get out of college right now.
Yeah.
What would be maybe 2 or 3 of the most important things that you would tell them?
Well, one, I want to start with high school. If you're in high school and you're trying to decide, do I go to college, do I not go to college? I'm not trying to say you shouldn't, but unless you want to be a doctor or a lawyer or a scientist or something of that nature, I don't really necessarily know if the payout, if it's worth it. Yeah. Unless it's a financially sound decision and you're not going into lots of debt for it. If you go into a little bit of debt, okay. If you go into a lot of debt, I personally don't think it's worth it.
I would agree.
So really think about that, because I don't know why, but you and my dad, my dad, you guys never told us any of that stuff. It's not the
I was told I didn't have a
parents.
choice either. Like when I was coming out of, I wanted to be a singer and actress. I wanted to move to Malibu, and go in that direction. And my parents thought that was super cute, of me singing in all the little high school things. Yeah. But the message was loud and clear. I was going to go to college because nobody in my family ever had. And so they felt like that was going to be the safer place for me to go, right?
Which I get.
So I got the degree. I got the business degree. Actually, I think the biggest reason I went and stayed was because I followed my husband there.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
But looking back on it, yeah, I mean, especially in this world now, because you do have so many other options, I don't think it's for everybody.
I don't either. But it's always been billed as a one-size-fits-all. This is the key to the next thing. And I can honestly say that my college degree did not benefit me in owning my business at all, because you learn by doing. Yeah. And I've learned over the years all of the different things that it takes to really be successful, but I didn't know any of those things, and no classroom was going to prepare me for the real life stuff you're going to deal with on a day-to-day basis as you grow and scale a business. So if you're young and you just graduated college and you're like, okay, what do I do? If you haven't had any internships, you need to get some internships. And you should do things that you actually are interested in versus just what your parents told you should do. Of course, there's always going to be finance and those types of things. If you love finance, great, go do a financial internship. But if that's really not your thing, don't feel like you have to do something that just really does not align with how your mind works. Like I've said, I'm not a numbers person, but I really learned I wasn't a numbers person through working in finance. So get experience. And at the end of the day, don't be afraid of stuff. I mean, so what if you fail? Everybody fails at stuff, you know? Like think about how many diets you've been on that failed because you didn't end up losing all the weight that you wanted to lose. Like who cares? You're going to be the harshest person on you for that, and you don't have to be. You can make the choice to not beat yourself up for the fact that you tried. You can celebrate the fact that you actually tried something. And then I don't know if this is number 2 or number 3, but go all in. So many times I see these young people and they're like, I'm going to start a business. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And then once again, they expect it to be easy. They expect it to be simple. They expect all these clients or business to just fall out of the sky. And especially if you're on TikTok, everyone's like, I just made $10,000 peddling like affiliate links to diet pills. It's like, come on. It's going to take work and you can't be afraid of it, and it's going to be really hard, and there's going to be days that you are ready to throw in the towel and just quit, and on those days you just have to take a break but don't give up. And that's been a big part for me of being able to maintain some mental sanity on the really tough days is just take a little break. Don't throw in the towel. You've worked for so many years and you've seen the success, but it didn't happen overnight. I mean, I still am running a small business. I'm not running 150 employee size team, but that's also never been my goal. So be clear if you do start your own business, like what is the goal here?
What's the vision long term?
Yeah, because you don't have to compare yourself to the agency down the street or the agency underneath me that's like 80 people deep, And the comparison trap, I would say, for the youngsters listening to this is the biggest piece to avoid. Just focus on yourself.
Yeah. I'm glad that you mentioned vision because, this is, totally my jam when I teach people how to write their vision on paper, especially young adults, because I did it when I was 28 for the first time, because I was working 9 to 5 out of college too, not loving it, changing jobs every 2 years. And my first mentor was the first person to say to me, you can create your life to look whatever you want it to look like. You just have to be really, really clear on what that is. And so I took a day and I wrote out very clearly what kind of lifestyle I wanted to have, where we were living, what kind of mom I wanted to be. And then I noodled a bunch of ideas about having my own business from home, wrapped around the lifestyle I wanted. And so when I help people with their vision, especially young adults, I tell them this is going to reveal a lot to you as to what career path to take.
Yes.
Right? Because I wanted freedom and flexibility. So the 9 to 5 thing was never going to work for me.
Yeah. And I actually just had a good conversation with a Gen Zer, I guess, and she's been with an agency now for 2 years. And I was like, you can make so much more money if you just started your own business or you were to be a consultant. And she's like, no, I really just love the stability and I really love the security and all of those things.
Yeah.
And so it was refreshing to hear that, because right now starting a business and being an entrepreneur is so glamorized. And I can tell you firsthand that it is not glamorous at all, at all. Yeah. So it's good to know yourself and know, hey, that I'm not suited for that path.
Right.
Because that's okay.
Yes.
Yes. You can still be really happy working for other people.
Yeah.
I have another good friend, and she's just like, I just don't handle that stress well, Yes. There's too much gray area for me.
Yes.
And I think, once again, so much kudos, because that's very insightful in understanding who you are. Yeah. And not trying to become something that you just, it's a huge clash.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just good to know yourself. And I was, for the first time at the age of 28, making my own decisions based on knowing myself and what I really, really wanted versus what everybody else was telling me to do. Because at that time, Leila, this was the 80s, right? So we were all told, get the college degree, get a good job, stay at the job, work your way up the ranks. So all of our friends were doing that very well.
Yeah.
I was the only one in the group they thought was crazy. When I jumped off and decided to go into network marketing in the skincare industry with Arbonne, they were all like, "You're going to do what?" And I said, they thought I was just doing it to sell lipstick. And I said, no, there's a way bigger
thing behind this.
Right. I wanted the financial freedom, the residual income, to earn the trips. I had a way bigger vision, but I knew that they couldn't see what I saw, and that was okay. I think that's another really good point to make, is that you have to follow your own vision.
Yeah.
And that's hard in this world, like you said, because of the comparison thing.
Well, and I've been really fortunate, too, that my parents raised me to believe I can do whatever I want. They never told me you need to do this. They would guide me to make smart decisions in different arenas, but it was never, this is the only way to be successful, and this is how you have to do it.
Yep.
And when I started my business, they supported me entirely. They still support me entirely. And they see just how hard I work.
Yeah.
And there's downsides too. My mom's always like, "Oh, you're so busy. I'm worried to reach out to you because, you're just so busy." I'm like, I hate this whole busy thing. It's like, no, I'm productive. I'm running a business. People's livelihoods depend on me.
Yep.
That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. Well, again, I had to have you on here because I respect you a lot for what you've done so early in your life, and the things that you're helping me teach young adults right now with this podcast. And I'll land on this. So you said something a minute ago that you said to me when we decided to do this a year and a half ago. You said, "I want you to promise me that you will not give up on this, that this is going to take some time." And it's so true. But to date, this podcast is doing so well because of you and your team. And
you every month are growing and growing and growing. Yep. And I know we all want to be the next Joe Rogan, right? Every podcast client we have wants to be the #1 podcast in the world.
Yeah.
And I love that drive, but everything takes time.
Right.
I didn't just drop into this gorgeous studio we're sitting in right now. This took 13 years to get to.
Yes. Well, I appreciate you, my friend.
I appreciate you too.
In more ways than one. And I am just loving what we're creating here and what's to come, because we have some pretty exciting things coming, especially for young adults. So stay tuned. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of Moving Through and Beyond. I am here to just keep reminding you to keep looking up. If you found this episode inspiring or helpful, please share it with a friend or a family member. In order to be successful on this mission, I can't do it alone. Connect with me at www.careyconley.com, and don't forget to sign up for my weekly Do It On Purpose newsletter. Let's build this life-giving vision movement together to end this epidemic, save lives, and create purpose.